Hey guys, it's Belle, and in this video I'm going to be reading through and translating two poems by Eugenius of Toledo, my favourite Latin poet, from his little book of poetry. These are songs number 35 and number 97 from that book, and these two poems are very interesting because put together they constitute the strongest evidence we have for Eugenius of Toledo's homosexual attractions and the difficulties he encountered in his life as a consequence of experiencing these attractions in the role of a monk and a bishop who was not therefore free to act on them. So we're going to read through this first poem from start to finish, and then I'll dive in to look at the individual lines. So forgive me as usual if my Latin diction is not perfect, but non sensus lector queso non verba requiras, scribere nam versus impullit ecce dolor. Christe fove segnis torpentia carmina lingue, ut possim questus ipse referre meos. Da guttas oculis posco da verba querellis, nam flere requies gaudia poena mihi. Iuncte seram nimium dilecto mente sodali, cuius ab affectu carmina mesta canunt. Non sic euryalum nisis lexit amatum, nec debatut nos pax in amore Deus. Concordes animos solvens discordia carpsit, excessit durris pax nuata dolis. Ut turtur solus percusso combare plangio, et frustra lacrimas penso perire meas. Laborio cari, labor succurrite fratri, prebetes occio cum pietate manum, pelle precor penitus pungentia iurgia Christe, ut possim sacris letus ad esse tuis. So, what does all of that mean? It's a very dramatic, heartfelt poem. Both of these are heartfelt poems. So, non sensus lector queso, non verba requiras. I beg, dear reader, lector queso, non sensus non verba requiras. May you seek neither the meanings nor these words, or, may you inquire into the meanings or these words. Scribene nam versus impulit ecce dolor. For behold, misery makes me write these verses. So what he's saying is, dear reader, funnily enough, given that we're doing this now, Eugenius is saying, dear reader, don't scrutinize the meaning or these words too much because I'm writing these verses out of pain. Christe, O Christ, fove segni sorpentia carmina lingue, sort of inspire these lazy songs, these warming songs of a lazy tongue. Ut possim questus ipse referre meos, so that I myself, possim ipse questus meos referre, I may relate my laments. Da guttas oculis, give tears to my eyes, posco, da verba querellis, give words to my quarrels, nam flere requies gaudia poena mihi. For weeping is a rest, it is joy and a punishment for me. Junctus eram nimium dilecto mente sodali. Junctus eram is I was joined, nimium too much, I was excessively close, dilecto sodali to a beloved comrade, mente in my mind. Cuius ab affectu carmina mesta canunt, on account of whose affection, on account of whose love, carmina mesta canunt, they sing wicked songs. Now, if you've seen my video on Eugenius of Toledo's Visigothic proverbs, you might remember that the carmina that the common people sing are very often songs about passive sexual behavior. So this subtle implication here that Eugenius is making is that he got too close to his comrade, a beloved comrade in his mind, and on account of their love, people started implying that that Eugenius was a bit of a bottom, which we have some bit of sort of confessed evidence that he might have been at least a little bitter. He might have experimented with it because in his poem on the advent of his own old age, he says, "Corrupi proprium lascivo vulnere corpus," which means literally it means I defiled my own body via a slutty wound. But what this actually means in terms of Latin euphemism is I fingered my own ass. So Eugenius probably, these accusations, these songs were probably realistic, or at least that they might have been realistic. There's some evidence to suggest that they may have been realistic. And he's writing this whole poem to basically be like, no homo, bro. It was just a bromance, yo. And this is the next line. Non sec euryalum nisus delexit amatum. Nisus did not cherish his beloved Euralius in this way. Now, Nisus and Euryalum are two men who I believe were in a sort of very committed, possibly sexual relationship in the Aeneid. So what he's doing is he's comparing him and this monk, who we'll get to in a second, or rather to this like this clergyman, let's say. Eugenius is comparing the relationship between himself and this clergyman to the relationship between Nisus and Euryalus from the Aeneid, a relationship which is pagan and which was known to be more sexual in its nature. And he's saying Nisus did not love Euryalus in that way, like their love was more sexual, whereas mine was more pure. And then he says, Necte vatud nos pax in amore Deus. Peace and God were, or like peace, God in the form of peace, was melding us together in amore, in love. It's very sweet. But then it all goes wrong. Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Concordes animos solvens discordia carpsit. I guess destructive discord seized our concordant souls, or our agreeable spirits. Excessit dures pactum vata dolis. And the tender peace ceased as a consequence of these harsh trickeries. And these are referring to the people who are singing these songs about him, I assume. Ut tortur solus percusso compare plango. I weep, plango, ut tortur solus, like a solitary turtle dove, percusso compare, with my companion having been struck out. Et frustra lacrimas penso perire meas, and I think that my tears perish in vain. Eugenius is always, like, he can bring out the love poetry when he wants to. This is a message to all men in the modern day. Like, we need to step up our poetry game, I swear to God. And so the implication I get from both of these lines is that the relationship was discovered. There was a scandal. The poem itself is entitled on the scandal which took place. And they separated Eugenius from his lover, and now he's weeping about it. And then he's thinking about this man still. Labor, io cari labor, soccorrite fratri. Labor, oh dear labor, soccorrite fratri. And this is the plural, so it's referring to all of the community. Help my brother. Prepete socio, like provide for my friend. Cum pietate manum, with the piety of your hands. And then he addresses Christ. Christe, pelle precor, drive away, I pray. Now, what does he want Christ to drive away? Penitus pungentia iurgia, this pungent, iurgia can mean sort of disgraces, or these shameful thoughts, penitus, within. So this is Eugenius of Toledo asking Christ to get rid of his homosexual desires, is how I'm reading these lines, and it's so sad. Ut possim sacris letus adesse tuis, so that I may be happy among your saints. And in many of his poems, Eugenius of Toledo seems quite convinced he's going to hell. He's begging Christ for forgiveness a lot more so than many others, and he has a long list of his crimes, which, there is a humility tropos in medieval literature from this time period. Monks were expected to sort of, I guess, debase themselves a little bit in how they wrote, but they don't need to make up crimes that they did. They don't need to pretend that they did things they didn't do. And Eugenius goes through this long list of crimes. He claims that I barely lived as a monk. I was just pretending the whole time. I stole. I raped Yeah, he literally says, like, I raped people, I fingered my own ass. He goes through this whole list of crimes, and he really seems to doubt that he's going to get into heaven. And so he's begging Christ to get rid of these sort of impure thoughts within him. And so people have, when I've talked about this poem and how gay it is, they've been like, how do you know that it wasn't just a sort of purely like platonic relationship that Eugenius had? And I was like, well, if it was purely platonic, if all of this stuff was true, Nisus did not actually love Euryalus in the same way. He wasn't actually too close to the guy. There wasn't a problem. I don't know why he would be asking Christ to cleanse him of these pungent disgraces, these impure desires, so that he can go to heaven afterwards. It doesn't make sense. It really seems like Eugenius is admitting to guilt here. And so we have this poem nearer the start of the book where he's accounting this scandal of homosexuality in his youth. And then we have down here another poem which really closes the loop. It brings us full circle on this story. We get the name of Eugenius's boyfriend. This is Hesychius. So we have, sometimes it's spelled as Eusychius. It depends on the manuscript tradition. But we have a name. And in this poem, Eugenius is writing a love letter to him, which is why I am titling this video A Gay Long Distance Relationship in Visigothic Spain, because my reading of it is that this letter is to his compadre, to his companion who was taken away when Eugenius was a turtur solus, a solitary turtle dove. This letter is written to that man who is his companion, and there are references in the letter which imply that they have been sending letters back and forth, speaking of their love for each other despite their separation. So, in a way, this is the first, well, at least the earliest evidence that I have seen for a same sex long distance relationship in the Middle Ages. So, if you know of one that's earlier than that, please let me know. I'd be very interested to see it. And without any further ado, let's get on with this video and this poem. And this poem is, oh my god, it's amazing love poetry, guys. So, forgive me as usual if my Latin diction is not perfect. So, Sanctorum meritis claro semperque beato, Eusychio Eugenius villis et exigius, accipe conscriptus plebeio carmine versus, quas stat dilecte pagina mesta tibi. Cara mi vestros advexit epistola questus, et me tristifico percullit indes o no. Oblitum te namque gemmis vilescere nobis, inque meo voltum corre perisse tuum. Crede meis verbis, nam faces credere nobis, credere nempelicet cum dubitare nocet. Testor namque Deum, sanctorum nomina testor, affectum vestri non debuisse mi. Ante pol solis ac lune luce carebit, quam sim conspectus in memore ipse tui. Ante quoque nostra discedit pectore vita, quam vestre mentis dulcis amicitia. Volvent puncta dies, volventur mensibus anni, semper in ore meo nomen amorque tuus. En, quia de promsit affectum pagina nostrum, dilige me nimium, dilige me nimium. Obsequio corris per solvens iura salutis, inc precor misericis memor alme tui. Christus ubique tuis concedat prospera votis, et parcat culpis Christus ubique meis. Now, I did a bit of a dramatic reading there, but let's dive into it. So these first two lines are just an opening coda, so to speak. Sanctorum meritis claris imperque beato Ezekiel. So to the distinguished and blessed Eusychius, distinguished in the merit of the saints, meriti sanctorum, Eugenius vilis et exigus. So Eugenius, a lowly and humble man, reaches out to you. This humble and lowly man, this is standard monastic self-effacingness. Accipe conscriptus plebeio carmine versus. Accept these verses written in a common meter, basically. Quostat pagina mesta tibi directe, which the wicked page or the miserable page gives to you, O my beloved. Carami vestros advexit epistola questus. Your dear letter brought your complaints, questus, mihi, to me. Et me tristifico perculit inde sono, and it struck me then with its saddening sound. Oblitum te namque gemmis vilescere nobis. Namque gemmis vilescere means for you complain, oblitum te vilescere nobis, that having been forgotten about, you are becoming ordinary to us. We're forgetting about you, basically, or I'm forgetting about you, because Eugenius is using the royal we here because he is a bishop after all. Inque meo vultum corde perisse tuum, and that in my heart, in meo corde vultum tuum perisse, your heart has, your face rather, has perished. So the memory of Eusychius's face has perished, or rather, I should say, in the last letter, Eusychius complained that he thinks that Eugenius has forgotten about him and forgotten what his face looks like, and that his face has perished in Eugenius's heart. And this really distresses Eugenius. He says, Credere meis verbis, believe in my words, nam faces credere nobis, for it is right and just to believe us. Credere nem pelicet. One should always believe, cum dubitare nocet, since doubting is harmful. Testor namque Deum, sanctorum nomina testor. I swear on God and on the names of all the saints, affectum vestri non debuisse mihi. My love for you has not grown tepid, has not cooled down. And then he really lays it on. Ante polus solis ac lune luce carrebit, quam sim conspectus in mem morripse tui. The sun and the poles of the sun and the moon will lose their light before I become forgetful of your face, or of your appearance, conspectus. Ante quoque nostro discedet pector de vita, quam vestre mentis dulcis amicitia. And also life itself shall depart our chest, discedet nostro pectore, quam vestre mentis dulcis amicitia, than the sweet friendship of your mind shall depart from our bodies. Now, there's a lot of interesting things to be said, and I'm still learning about it. I might actually do a video doing a proper deep dive examination of precisely what this Latin word amicitia means, because in certain contexts, although it's commonly translated as friendship, it appears to be the word for sex or for the procreative capacity. Augustine of Hippo in, I believe it's De Bono Conjugali, writes of in the prologue to De Bono Conjugali, writes about the vis amicitiae, the power of friendship, and this is very clearly in that context referring to sexual activity. So I think my sort of inkling right now is that this word amicitia was on a sliding scale. Sometimes it could be more sexual in meaning, other times it was much more platonic in its meaning. And maybe it's meant to be ambiguous. Maybe Eugenius is using this word because it could be interpreted in a purely platonic or in a more potentially sexual way, so he can slide this by anybody who might give him trouble for it. Volvent puncta dies, volventur mensibus anni. Like, puncta is just sort of like points or like minutes. It's a small measurement of time in medieval England. I believe it is maybe 30 seconds, I think. I can't quite remember, but the points turn the days. The years are turned by months. Semper in orde meo nomen amorque tuus. But your name and your love, nomen amorque tuus, is always in my mouth, in orde meo. En is like, oh, lo, alas, quia de prompsit affectum pagina nostrum, since this page has laid out affectum nostrum, our affection. Dilige me nimium, dilige me nimium. He repeats it, love me excessively, love me excessively. Now, it's interesting, right? We have that same word here, and he said earlier, I was too close to a beloved comrade in my mind, and they sang songs about it. It was a scandal, and we got in trouble. And he's using that same word again, like, and even the same verb, because this comrade he describes as dilectus, which is from the Latin verb deligere, which we have here. So in this first poem, he says this comrade is beloved, and now he's using that same verb, saying love. So love me excessively, love me excessively, and I sort of almost feel like this is like remember the good old days, like to his boyfriend. He's trying to bring back that spark that they once had, because over the years of being separated and exchanging letters to each other, letters of poetry, their relationship might have gotten a bit tepid, or at least Eusychius seems to be worried that their relationship has gotten a bit tepid. So Eugenius uses some of the same words that he did in the poem describing the very beginning when things were like really bad for them. He's clearly thinking back to those earlier days when he's writing these lines, dilige me nimium, dilige me nimium. Obsequio cordis per solvens iurda salutis. I, a man, per solvens iurda salutis, breaking up the laws of health, obsequio cordis, in service of my heart. Now this is, again, a very, like, direct reference to the fact that Eugenius knows he's doing something wrong. He's breaking up the laws of health. And as I've said in earlier videos on the sexual politics of bread in Visigothic Spain, and my video on the Visigothic proverbs, in Visigothic law codes, such as the law codes of King Regiswinth and others, homosexuality was described as a mental illness. So this is Eugenius saying, I'm breaking the laws of health, which say that I shouldn't maintain this kind of relationship with you, in service of my heart, obsequio cordis. It's so sweet. It's touching, really. Hinc precor ut miservicis memoral me tui. So I, a man, breaking the laws of health in service of my heart, inc precor, I beg, ut miservicis memor alme tui, that you may be mindful, sis memor miseri tui, of your wretch alme, O beloved one, or even O nurturing one. And this nurturing one could potentially refer to that whole notion or that whole dynamic of the feeder being the sexually active partner, as we looked at in the videos on the sexual politics of bread in Visigothic Spain, but of course in the Visigothic proverbs, the word alumnus being the, I guess, past participle of it, referring to a person who has been fed as part of that relationship, and who, by virtue of having been fed, is now in a potentially economically and sexually dependent position. So there's a potential in that there, but it quite probably also just means like beloved, this alme here, referring to Eusychius. And then, like with these last ones, the last two lines, Eugenius turns back to Christ, and he is, I guess, asking Christ's forgiveness once again. Christus ubique duis concedat prospera vortis. May Christ grant prosperous things always duis votis to your prayers, et pardonat culpis Christus ubique meis. And may Christ always forgive my faults, or forgive my faults on all sides and all things. So yet again, he acknowledges he's breaking up the laws of health. He's doing something which, well, he's engaging in a homosexual relationship, which may be perceived by those around him as a sign of mental illness, but he's doing it anyway in service of his heart, because Eugenius is so in love with Eusychius that he just can't help himself, and he's writing himself these letters, trying to rekindle the fire in their relationship, which had once been so strong as to get them in trouble and to get them separated by the powers that be in the church of Visigothic Toledo. So there we go. We have the poem number 35 from his Book of Songs, recounting how Eugenius and Eusychius were too close in their youth. People started singing songs about them, there were rumours flying about, and they got in trouble. And they were separated. And here, probably many years later, I feel like this is Eugenius's final letter to Eusychius. At the end of this long relationship of many years where they seem to have still been writing letters to each other, he sends one last letter trying to rekindle that flame that they once had. But he's aware that he's rekindling a relationship which he shouldn't be in, and so he begs Christ again for forgiveness at the end here, just as he asks Christ to get rid of those desires within him in the poem about the scandal which took place. So there we go. That is the gay long-distance relationship that I have discovered in Visigothic Spain. I love Eugenius of Toledo's poetry so much, and I hope you guys have enjoyed going through these two poems and doing a comparative reading of them with me here today. If you want me to teach you Latin or any of the other languages that I do here on this channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon to receive tuition, and that will be linked in the description of this video. And you can also join my Discord server. I tend to post these tidbits as screenshots in my server before I make videos out of them, so you can get early access in a way. And we also just have a really fun community of like-minded people who share memes, and sometimes we do movie nights. You should come and join us, it's great fun. And I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye everyone!